In the heart of Jinja, where the Nile begins its mighty journey, an ancient secret lies buried beneath the dust of progress. When a forgotten drum is unearthed at a construction site, it doesn't just reveal a lost kingdom. It exposes a web of corruption, greed, and stolen history. As journalist Kato digs deeper, he realizes some powerful men will do anything to keep the truth buried. But the drum beats on, and its echoes will shake a nation. The midday sun hung like a burning eye over Jinja, Uganda, casting long shadows over the construction site. The air was thick with dust and heat, and the sound of machines roared through the landscape, drowning out the chatter of the workers. For weeks, the land near the banks of the Nile had been dug up, preparing for what was meant to be the biggest factory in East Africa. Businessmen and government officials had shaken hands over this project, promising wealth, jobs, and progress. But progress had a cost. One of the workers, Musa, wiped sweat from his forehead as he drove his shovel into the dirt. He had been working this job since sunrise, his muscles aching, his thoughts fixed on the few shillings he would earn at the end of the week. Then, clang! His shovel didn't sink into soft soil. It hit something hard. Musa frowned. Rocks were common in these digs, but this didn't feel like a rock. He knelt down, brushing away the dirt with his calloused hands, revealing something dark and smooth beneath the earth. His heartbeat quickened. "Hey, come see this," Musa called out. A few other workers gathered around as he dug faster, revealing carvings, old symbols worn by time but still visible. A drum. But not just any drum. It was large, made of dark wood that looked untouched by rot or decay, even after being buried for centuries. Its leather top, stretched tight over the frame, seemed perfectly preserved. Whispers spread among the workers. "Is it a treasure?" one asked. "Maybe it's from the old kings," another muttered. "What if it's cursed?" someone whispered, stepping back. The foreman, a short, stocky man with a thick beard, pushed his way through the crowd. "What is this nonsense?" he barked. "We don't have time for games!" But when he saw the drum, his face changed. He wasn't a superstitious man, but something about this drum felt wrong. The air around it seemed heavy, as if it carried the weight of forgotten stories. One of the older workers, a man named Jemba, let out a sharp breath. His eyes widened in recognition. "This is no ordinary drum," he said, his voice low. "This is from the Old Kingdom." The younger workers exchanged confused looks. "The Old Kingdom?" Musa asked. Jemba nodded, his voice barely a whisper. "Before the British came, before the chiefs were forced out, there was a kingdom here, a powerful one. Their warriors carried drums like this, drums that were never supposed to be touched by outsiders." A nervous silence fell over the site. Then the foreman shook his head and laughed. "Superstitions," he scoffed. "It's just wood and leather. Get rid of it and keep working." But Jemba didn't laugh. His wrinkled hands clenched into fists. "You don't understand," he said. "This drum is a message, and you just woke it up." The news spread faster than wildfire. By the next morning, the construction site in Jinja was swarmed. Journalists, historians, and government officials arrived, eager to see the mysterious drum. Some came with notebooks and cameras, others with worried expressions. The once busy site, where workers had been tearing into the earth to make way for progress, was now a battleground of opinions. On one side stood the historians and cultural leaders. They argued that the drum was a relic of an ancient kingdom, proof of a civilization that had ruled this land long before the British redrew Africa's borders. On the other side were the businessmen and politicians, men in expensive suits and polished shoes, who saw the drum as nothing more than an inconvenience. And in the middle of it all was Kato, a young journalist with a keen eye for the truth. The discussion started politely, but it didn't stay that way for long. Dr. Kato, an elderly historian from Makerere University, leaned over the drum, carefully tracing her fingers over the intricate carvings. "This is over 400 years old," she said. "It belonged to the Basonga kingdom, a powerful dynasty that ruled this land before colonial rule." The business tycoons scoffed. Mr. Walusimbi, a wealthy developer, waved a dismissive hand. "We are not here for old stories, Professor. We are here for progress." He turned to the government officials standing nearby. "This project will create jobs. It will make Jinja the heart of industry in Uganda." Dr. Nakato narrowed her eyes. "At what cost?" The crowd murmured. "This land is sacred," an elder from a nearby village spoke up. "My grandfather told me stories of this place. The Basonga kings once held court here. If this drum was buried beneath it, then this land still belongs to their people." At this, Walusimbi laughed coldly. "The Basonga kingdom is gone. There is no one left to claim this land." But then, Kato stepped forward. "That's not true," he said firmly. "I've been looking into the land records. Something doesn't add up." The businessmen and politicians stiffened. Kato lifted his notebook. He had spent the night digging through the National Archives, and what he found was shocking. "These lands were never legally transferred to the government," he said. "They were taken." A murmur of shock and unease rippled through the crowd. He continued, flipping through his notes. The records from 60 years ago showed that the descendants of the Basonga royal family still had a claim to this land. But somewhere in the last 20 years, those records disappeared. The air around them seemed to tighten. Dr. Nakato leaned forward. "Are you saying this land was stolen?" Kato nodded, and someone in power covered it up. A sudden tension filled the air. The politicians exchanged uneasy glances. The businessmen shifted uncomfortably. Then, Mr. Walusimbi stepped closer to Kato. His voice was low, controlled, but his eyes were dangerous. "You're a bright young man, Kato," he said. "You have a future ahead of you. Be careful what stories you chase." Kato felt his pulse quicken. Was that a threat? Before he could respond, the government official in charge of the project raised a hand. "This is nonsense," he snapped. "The project will continue. The drum is meaningless." Then, turning to the foreman, he barked, "Move it, now." Two construction workers hesitated. The foreman glared at them. "Did you not hear the man? Get rid of it." Reluctantly, the workers grabbed shovels and crowbars and moved toward the drum. Then, boom! The drum had not been touched, but the sound was as loud as a gunshot. Some of the elders in the crowd gasped and stepped back. Dr. Nakato's eyes widened. "You cannot move this drum." But the businessmen were not impressed. "It's just an old relic," Walusimbi snapped. "No one can stop progress." He turned to the foreman. "Finish the job." The workers hesitated, then moved forward again. And that's when one of them screamed. He fell to the ground, his face pale, his breath coming in short, panicked gasps. He clutched his chest. "I can't breathe." Another worker dropped his crowbar and backed away. "Something is wrong," he whispered. Even the government official, who had been so bold just moments ago, looked uneasy. The people watched in stunned silence. Then, Kato noticed something. The corrupt men were afraid. Not of the drum, not of the supposed curse, but of what it represented. This drum was not just an artifact. It was proof. Proof that the land was never theirs. Proof that history was on the side of the people. And now, the whole world was watching. Kato left the construction site with a storm of thoughts raging in his mind. The events of the day, the discovery of the drum, the arguments, the threats, all pointed to something much deeper. This wasn't just about history. It was about power, greed, and a cover-up that stretched back decades. He knew one thing. He needed proof. Kato's first stop was the National Archives in Kampala. The building was old, its hallways lined with dusty records of Uganda's past. He knew the land had once belonged to the Basonga kingdom, but where was the legal proof? He searched for hours, flipping through old maps, deeds, and colonial records. Something was missing. The original land documents, the ones from before independence, were gone, stolen, erased. Kato's pulse quickened. Someone had deliberately removed evidence of ownership. Someone had wanted the Basonga descendants to be forgotten. "Looking for something?" a quiet voice asked. Kato turned sharply. A frail, elderly man in thick glasses stood behind him. "I used to work here," the old man said. "I remember those records. I remember the truth." Kato's heart pounded. "Tell me everything," he said. And so, the old man did. He told Kato about how powerful men had stolen the land, forging new deeds, wiping away the names of the true owners. He spoke of politicians, businessmen, and foreign investors, all working together to erase history for profit. "These people," the old man whispered, "they don't want the truth to come out. If you publish this story, they will come for you." Kato felt a chill, but he couldn't stop now. As Kato left the archives, his gut told him something was wrong. The streets of Kampala were always busy, but tonight, the city felt different. He glanced over his shoulder. A black SUV was parked across the street. The engine was running. The tinted windows hid whoever was inside, but Kato knew they were watching him. His hands tightened around his notebook. He needed to get home. He needed to publish the story. He didn't know it yet, but he was already being hunted. Kato moved quickly through the streets, his heart racing. He tried to stay calm, but his instincts screamed at him. He was in danger. He ducked into an alleyway, moving through the maze of Kampala's back streets. The SUV followed, then, bang! A gunshot shattered the silence. Kato dove behind a row of market stalls, his heart hammering in his chest. The vendors screamed, running in all directions. More gunshots. The bullets tore through wooden crates, sending fruit and debris flying. Kato knew he had seconds to escape. He spotted a narrow path leading into an apartment block and sprinted towards it. Footsteps pounded behind him. The men were chasing him. He raced up the stairs, 2 steps at a time. On the 3rd floor, he darted into an open door, slamming it shut behind him. A woman and her child looked up, startled. "Please," Kato whispered, "don't tell them I'm here." The woman nodded and gestured for him to hide. Seconds later, the door burst open. 3 armed men stormed inside. "Where is he?" one of them growled. The woman shook her head, her eyes steady. The men searched the room, but they didn't check the small storage closet where Kato was holding his breath. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the men left. Kato knew one thing. He had to release the story before they caught him. Kato didn't sleep that night. Hiding in a cheap motel, he typed furiously, putting together every piece of evidence he had. He attached copies of the old land records, statements from the elders, and even the testimony of the archivist who had risked everything to tell the truth. Before dawn, he sent the story to every major newspaper and news station. The headline hit Uganda's front pages by morning. The country exploded. Protests erupted in the streets. People marched through Jinja, demanding answers. Villagers, historians, and students joined together, chanting, "Return our land." The government panicked. The businessmen denied everything, but the evidence was too strong. Within days, an official investigation began. Arrests were made. The construction project was shut down, and the land was returned to its rightful owners. In the aftermath, the drums of Jinja were taken to a museum, protected for future generations. But some say, on quiet nights, if you walk near the banks of the Nile, you can hear it. A drum that was meant to be buried, but refused to be silenced. A reminder that truth always finds a way. Stories connect us to our past, shape our present, and guide our future. African Legends and Stories is more than just storytelling. It is a bridge between yesterday and tomorrow, between tradition and modernity. Subscribe now and be part of this journey. Like, comment, and share to keep these legends alive. This is African Legends and Stories, where the past speaks and the future listens.